and welcome to a very special episode of the 1973 podcast. We're here with, I'm going to say, friend of the show, former NHL goaltender for the Boston Bruins, Ross Brooks. So happy to finally get him on. We were having some fun before we started really recording, but I can tell already it's going to be great. Brooksy, before we get going, I would just want to say thank you so much for coming on. We had a little technical difficulties, but I told you to go not use the flip phone. We're gonna go modern technology, so we're right back into it. So we're gonna chirp, we're gonna talk, we're gonna tell some stories, and we want to talk not about us. We want to talk about you.
Well,
And
a pleasure to come on. I'm enjoying it. And when you guys, you're the only problem is your equipment is 1937, and that's the problem we had for the last hour.
it seems like an hour, doesn't it
Yeah.
already?
The,
So
the hour
before,
will go fast, I'll tell you that.
yeah. So why don't we start by just telling everybody how your hockey journey started way back when, and we'll go from there.
You don't have enough friggin' time for that.
we got plenty of time. We're so happy that you just came on. So we're
Well,
gonna give you the floor.
my career started in Toronto. Obviously, that's where I was born and grew up a Leaf fan, obviously, and uh, so people ask me all the time, "How come you're cheering for the Leafs? What's the matter with you?" I said, "Well, what the hell? I was born there, and I listened to Foster Hewitt in bed at night when I went to bed, and my parents let me do that on the radio, and became a fan naturally. And then through my career, I played youth hockey in Toronto, and all the way up to teenager stuff, and I remember my first episode was at a rink called Icelandia, where I some days I had to take the bus, get on the bus with my equipment, and go to Yonge Street, get on a streetcar, and go down 4 or 5 blocks. And Icelandia was right there, and all they gave you was a colored shirt. That was it, and that's how I started. And I don't know how I started in goal, but that's how I just played goal, and that was it. And that's how everything started. And then from there, I just kept going and going and going. And it's been a great life for me. It really has. I've enjoyed the heck out of it. And then making the NHL was a dream I never thought I would see, obviously, uh, and doing that, and then going in that dressing room with those guys was, I thought I won the lottery. I really did.
So before we get to the Bruin stuff, I want to ask you about one of the coolest jerseys in local lore for me, the Rhode Island Reds. I absolutely love that jersey. I believe at one time in the Civic Center, now the Dunk or whatever they want to call it. I always call it the Providence Civic Center. There
Yeah.
was a Rhode Island Reds little memorabilia kiosk
He,
that had some red stuff in it, and I believe at one time there was a picture of you, and I'm not sure if it was equipment or whatever. But tell me about your time with the Reds.
well, there is a kiosk in there still. They're trying to grade that whole situation there, and I do have my picture on it. And it's been a bone of contention that the Civic Center itself and the P Bruins are didn't want the Reds to have anything really in there when it's history, and so it's been an ongoing battle. They're trying to find a place where to put everything that they have, and it's a shame because it's that's history, for God's sake. And but at least it's in there, and that's something.
Yeah, I love those jerseys. I
But
absolutely love those jerseys.
but I came to Providence. I went to the Bruins training camp way back. I can't even remember the year, but it had to be 59 or 60, because I have a picture on my wall here with Harry Lumley and Don Simmons. And I'm in the middle, and I look like I just got out of kindergarten. And which I graduated from. I was pretty happy about that. But and I came to, and Harry Lumley and myself, he took me down to Providence to see a game. And I don't know why or what, but I remember coming down, and that was the first time I ever came here. And that was with the Bruins training camp was in Boston at the Garden, and we stayed at the Manger Hotel. And so that was the first time I've ever came to Rhode Island. And then back around 64, 63 or 4, then I came here kind of permanently, and I've been here ever since. And playing with the Reds I didn't play much. The best thing that happened to me with the Reds, I got fired. And I end up to Oklahoma City, and thank God for Milt Schmidt and Murray Davison, who gave me a chance. And it can actually thank Milt for giving me the chance after me getting let go by Providence. And I had some good times in Providence. I'm not saying I didn't, but I didn't play a lot because there was Jackman, there was Marcel Paillet, Gil Mayer. Those guys were all seasoned guys. And then, of course, Ed was picked by the Rangers, and they were touting him big time. And so he was playing all the time. So I played on the road quite a bit. And but that was how it all started. But then Larry Wilson was the coach, and I don't think he liked me much. And they let me go. And here I am walking down North Main Street, not knowing what's going on. I living in Rhode Island, and that's when Milt called. I guess he called Murray Davison, or Murray Davison must have asked him. They needed a guy out there to finish the year, and Murray called me and said, would you be interested in coming out? We'll pay your way in and out and the whole 9 yards. And I said, you got to be kidding me. I said, yeah. And I had no idea where Oklahoma City was, but it was a long way away. And that's how it all started with that. But previous to that, I played all over the place. People ask me all the time, where'd you play? I said, name a town. Look at my bio thing, and you look at North Bay, and you look at Charlotte, North Carolina, and Johnstown, and Phoenix, and you go, holy God. I even look at it sometimes, say, did I do that? Did.
So I want to get your thoughts real quick on somebody that a lot of people don't know, but he's an NHL legend, Milt Schmidt. What's your good Milt Schmidt story?
Well, I'm looking right at his picture. About 2 months before he died, Bill Gilbane and myself went up and had lunch with him, and he shook our hands when we went in, and he was in his chair and everything. And holy God, his handshake was like, you got to be kidding me, And he was like 98 or whatever the heck he was. But he was responsible for giving me a chance when the Reds, and I was out of Providence, and I never forgot it. And we did a Reds reunion in Woonsocket at the Stadium Theater. And we were sitting on a stage being interviewed, and it was myself, Bobby Leduc, who played for the Reds, and Milt. And so we're talking, and I said, can I, when we get through this, can I spend a couple of minutes with you? Would you mind? Oh, no, he said, and he was a genuine guy. He really was. And so I said to him after, I said, I never really had the opportunity personally to say thank you for what you did for me. I said, you took me from the bottom and I went to the top. And I said, if it wasn't for you telling Murray, if you want him, get him, I wouldn't be sitting here today. And I said, I just wanted to thank you and how much I appreciate what you did for me. And he just looked at me and he said, you're welcome. He said, but you earned it. Made me feel like $1 million. You earned it. That's what he said. And that's one of the stories of Milt. And he was a tough guy. I mean, he didn't play in those eras not being tough, but he was a sincere person, very sincere person. And if he told you something, it was it. When I went to the Braves, he he talked about contract, and we didn't have negotiations in those days. If you did that, you were blackballed. And so he gave me two bonuses if I could get them, and verbal on a handshake. Who the hell does that anymore?
Yeah.
Nobody. And you know what? He paid both of them after the season was over, and we had a hell of a year, obviously, because the Braves we averaged 11,200 people in the freaking Garden. It was so good. So anyway, I just got more respect for that man. He was very good to me, but he's a Hall of Fame gentleman. That's what he is, as he was a player, but as more as a gentleman, he's a Hall of Fame guy in my book.
So what I want to ask you is, so all that time in the minors, and then finally you get the call to go to the Bruins at age 36.
Yeah.
It's like a story in itself. Like, tell us about how that whole journey just got to that point. And when you got the call, did you think somebody was actually pulling your leg, or?
No, because it all started with going to training camp with the Boston Braves and Oklahoma City and the Bruins, all in London, Ontario, and we were in training camp, and I was with Oak City, and because I had finished the year there, and the trainer who we didn't get along too well, always busting chops back and forth. He comes in the room and he said, Milt wants to see you. Like, you're out of here, So he said he's up in the stands. And he was sitting up there all by himself. And I went up and he said, how you doing? I said, fine. He said, sit down. He said, you're having a decent camp. I said, well, you know what, Milt, this is the first camp I've ever been at. We never had camps like with the Reds. It was just 2 weeks and you go play. So he said, well, we got this new team we're starting in Boston with the Braves. And he said, we'd like you to be a part of it. And I'm going, you got to be kidding me. I just got fired last year. And so me being Brooksy, I said to him, could I live at the Park Plaza? And said, if you can make practice, you can live wherever you want. I said, you mean I could live in Lincoln, Rhode Island? And he said, if you can make practice. I said, I just died and went to heaven, for God's sake. And that's how it started. And then I finished the year with the Braves. We had a great year. And we, like I say, we averaged a lot of people come to our games. The fans picked us up and was really, they really caught on. And then that year was over. Then back to training camp in London, Ontario, and I'm with the Braves training camp, obviously. And at 11 o'clock at night, the phone rings in the room, and it's TJ, Tommy Johnson, and he said, "Hey," that's what he said. "Hey, we're gonna keep you, kid." I'm going, what the frig does that mean? And he was coaching the Bruins. And that's how that started. And so I got off the phone and I'm going, you got to be shitting me. I just fired 2 years ago. Here. So, and I could still live at home. So it was a total win-win, but that's how that happened. And then, of course, Bep Goodland was the coach of our team and the Braves. He was a great guy, and he just passed on, I think, a year or so ago. And we had more fun with him as a coach. He was great, but we were winning all the time. That's how good it was, And So I got nothing but good things to say about those people, how they treated us at that time. Now it's a business, and it's nothing but you need an agent, and these players now don't even get to talk to the GMs much. It's just, oh, I got to call this guy, and the same thing in college now. These guys got to put up with agents calling college coaches. Gee, you know, but that's way things are going. So that's my kind of story about Milton and the Bruins and the Braves and Oklahoma City and Murray Davison giving me a shot too. And it's in fact, I was in his wedding party, Murray's, and then he passed away tragically in Colorado, and pretty sad. He was a real good friend. We played in Barrie, Ontario, together with Junior A. So that's that part of the story. And then playing in Toronto, in Canada, and then I played with Brampton in Junior C or Junior D, I think it was, and then I played with the Lakeshore Bruins at that time, and then I played in Barrie, Ontario, with the Barrie Flyers, who was kind of all the guys came to Boston from there. Leo Labine, way back, those kind of players and stuff. So, and then I started to play. You name a town, I'm playing there. So funny, I spoke at a banquet once, and they asked me, "How come you played in so many different places?" I said, "Because I couldn't hold a job." What else do you want me to say?
So, Tom, do you have a question for a new Fred Brooksy?
Sure. Joining the Bruins team that had Orr and Esposito, what was that locker room
Who?
like?
Who?
Orr?
Oh, I think I remember that guy. Oh, let me tell you, when we broke camp in London and then came back to Boston, and it was a whole different ball game at that time. Walking into that dressing room for the first time and just looking around and look at the names and the guys that were there and it was like history. They won a cup, for God's sake, and then going to the end, and EJ, he sat at one end of the room. Eddie Johnson, who was terrific to me, he was really good. He said to the guys, "He's with me, leave him alone." But I go to the other end of the room and I see my nameplate, and I almost cried because it's been a long road, and I was no kid anymore, but I was there, and I can't believe what my mom and dad must have thought at that time, because I'm an only child, and all the years they put in and did stuff for me and whatever, and then seeing that name there, and then look at the other names, and those guys are. Bobby's still a good friend of mine. We talk on the phone. I send him stuff. He sends me stuff back. I had 20 years of a golf tournament for my son, who had his accident in 1990, and Bobby always, what can I do? What can I do? And people ask me like all the time I know you know him well, but what's he like? And I said, you know what? I'm going to say what I think he's like. I think he's a better person than he was a player. And that's an honest statement. He's been so good to me, and over the years, and I had an 80th birthday party. He and two other guys surprised me, and we're sitting in the restaurant when I was supposed to meet somebody else. I didn't know. It was a surprise, and he's sitting there. I mean, he's just somebody. He's a special person.
Ed, question for Brooksy.
Brooksy, what was your most favorite building to play in? With the crowd, just that you stepped out on the ice and you were like,
well, I think being selfish would be Maple Leaf Gardens, because I always went there and watched junior hockey. I watched the Leafs. I watched Toronto Marlboros and Junior A. I played in the building in Junior A. And, the Forum was sacred. Chicago Stadium was a pleasure to play in, different buildings. The Olympia in Detroit was history. The only one I didn't play in was the original Madison Square. I played in the new one. And then, playing in the Garden. I mean, that place was history also. I mean, but I think because I grew up and you always say, "Oh, I'm going to play there one day. I'm going to play there one day," and you don't know if you are or you're not, but that's what you say. And then that was a thrill for me to step on that ice, and my parents were there, my friends were there. It was exciting as hell, and I played my second game in the league there, and I'll tell you, I don't think I've ever been so friggin' nervous in my life. And they say if you're not nervous, you're not going to do any good, and it's probably true in one way, but that was a different ball game, and I knew I was playing 3 days before, and when they told me you're going to play Saturday, I never thought about it until I looked where we were playing, and I said, "Holy Jesus!" So, but first shot on goal, Dave Keon, right through my legs. So I tried to get a shovel and dig a hole so I could get it. And but we end up winning the game 3-2. And my mom couldn't watch the third period. She walked the halls, and it was thrilling. I mean, you can't make that up, I don't think.
I'm gonna ask you about an NHL record of yours. 37, 7, and 6. That's the start of a Hall of Fame career. You know that, right?
Well, the funny part about all that, and it wasn't funny at the time, but when I was on that 14 in a row situation, and we lost the game in Oakland, and I wasn't supposed to play, and then I was near playing in Oakland and whatever. I couldn't stop a football that night. I mean, it was just one of those games, and and the team was. That was the night that the boys in their dressing room had to fight, and we had to lock Bep out of the room so he couldn't get in and all that shit. And they were really upset about that too. But the funny part about it was, I was in the running for the Rookie of the Year. I would have been the friggin' oldest Rookie of the Year. And then we come back to Boston and we win 3 in a row. I would have been in at least one of them. And it would have been 15, 16, 17 or whatever. But I thought about it maybe a year later and said, Jesus, what a thing that would have been to be on that stage and pick up the Rookie of the Year.
Yeah, unbelievable.
Being 104.
It would still be a record, right?
Oh, yeah. 2 records. Oh, shit. But
Thomas, question for Brooksy.
Yeah, you tied the NHL record for most consecutive wins to start a career. Did you realize the significance at the time of what was going on?
Yeah and no, because you're playing the games, and you're somebody says, "Oh, you got 8, you won 8 in a row, you won 11 in a row," and then you start thinking, and then the 14th came up and tied it, and that was 1929, Tiny Thompson, and so that was a thrill in itself. Just I'm tied a record, Jesus, and then of course now it's been broken, no problem, but. It was something that I thought about and didn't think about it. It wasn't the end of the world for me. I was playing and I was getting starts, and that was what mattered the most. And if that happened, it would have been terrific, but it didn't. But I still tied the record. So there you go.
Ed, question for Brooksy.
I'm going to say I believe that you worked for Providence College, and so that's what's kind of kept you. So I assume that you enjoy living in the Metro Providence area, and it seems to be that something that kind of keeps you there. Is it what keeps you in that area?
What keeps me in the area? When I first came to Rhode Island, in '64 when we moved here and we had a house, we bought a house. It was the people. I never met such people that were helpful and playing with the Reds. And I knew 3 governors by their first names. I mean, where the hell do you do that? And but the other people that I met and along the way, and even to this day, people here are really nice. And I've been very fortunate to meet so many nice people too. And I play golf still with guys, and they talk about hockey and this and that, and it's a lot of fun. But it was the people at the time, really, that because when I first moved here in '64, my buddies came down from Toronto to visit and said, "What the frig are you doing here? You going to stay here? Like, this is old. It's an old place." I said, "It's New England, and the beaches and Boston, and there's a lot of advantages here. You're an hour from anywhere around here, and New York's 3 hours, but it was the genuine people that made me feel so good here, and it's still going on today."
So, Brooksy, I want to ask you about the juggernaut that was the '70s Bruins. What was that locker room like, and with Jerry Cheevers in it, and the whole culture? What was the atmosphere like in that locker room?
It was stick up for your next guy all the time. It wasn't one guy. It wasn't 2 guys. It wasn't just Bobby. It wasn't Phil. It wasn't Kenny Hodge. It was Dallas Smith. It didn't matter who you go. Eddie J. and Vadnais and the guys. It wasn't those and McKenzie. It wasn't about one guy. It was, you talk about a team that stuck up for each other. It was the friggin' Bruins.
Brooks will always have hockey. He recently lost his son in a senseless accident. The way Brooks is coping with this tremendous void left in his life and the compassion he's showing is uniquely brave and amazingly open-minded, given the circumstances surrounding his son's death. Like every kid who grows up in Canada, Ross Brooks dreamed of playing in the National Hockey League. Brooks traveled a long and winding minor league road, which, as the song promises, led to the door of the NHL.
I think probably the biggest thing is just the thrill of being there was quite a thing for me. I bounced around the minor leagues. If there was a town, I was in it and played there.
And Boston was the town he was in when his NHL dream finally came to fruition. Brooks served as a steady backup goaltender for the likes of Eddie Johnston and Gilles Gilbert. He posted an impressive 37-7-6 mark in his 3 years with the Bruins, and he owned a special spot in Bruins lore. The night was January 19, 1974. The place, the Montreal Forum. The final score, Boston 8, Montreal nothing. And until this season, he was the last Bruin to earn a shutout in the hallowed halls of the Montreal Forum.
I wasn't supposed to play that night, and we went to practice in the morning and then went out and ate a big meal. And I don't usually eat the day of a game. I can't eat a lot, or I didn't eat a lot at that time. And Gilbert and I were in the room. We were roomies, and the phone rang, and it was Bep wanted to know what we were doing. I said, "We're up here having a party." "What do you mean? What are we doing?" We're getting ready for tonight." He said, "Well, you're going to play tonight." He said, "Gillie's sick." I looked over, I said, "Gil, are you sick?" He said, "I didn't want to tell you. I want him to tell you." And the rest was history. And the first shot, though, probably told the whole story of the whole game, because the first shot was Mihalovic come down, he hit the crossbar, and went up in the stands. I never even moved. And then after that, it was good night.
All in all, things are going pretty well for Ross Brooks. He got to play in the National Hockey League with the Orrs and Espositos of the world. And when his playing days were over, he opened his own business and went on to coach high school hockey in Lincoln, Rhode Island. However, early last year, Ross Brooks' storybook life took a tragic turn.
Well, actually, in the last year and a half, my father died, and then Chris was killed last February.
Chris was Ross's 25-year-old son. On Saturday, February 17th of last year, Chris Brooks and a friend were walking home when they were struck from behind without warning by a hit-and-run driver. The operator of the car later admitted He was drunk.
Why he would leave somebody laying in the middle of a road. I don't know how any of us here would react to hitting somebody on a street. What we would do. I don't think you know what you would do. I don't think, anybody here would know exactly what their feelings are and what they would do. He took off.
While suffering the biggest loss of his life, Ross Brooks also may have made his biggest save. When it came time for justice, he chose not to send his son's killer to jail.
You have to walk out of the courtroom and feel that you've done something. You can't walk out of the courtroom and feel vindictive or that you've been cheated. We've already been cheated, so that's over. So we both walked out of there after it was over feeling that what this kid is doing is 5 years of home confinement, which means he's a prisoner in his own home. And the onus is on his shoulders now. It's giving him a chance. If he screws up, he could be at the ACI.
Hockey still plays a major role in Ross Brooks' life. He's now a goaltender coach for the Providence College Friars. He hopes the long, winding road he's traveled will have a positive influence on his players, the same type of influence a former Bruin teammate had on his late son. Chris Brooks idolized Bobby Orr. Chris had a poster of number 4, and just before he was killed, Chris told his dad he desperately wanted Orr to autograph it.
That's really what he wanted. He was just, he kept telling me, get that thing signed. And he's got about 5 pictures of him, but he just wanted this one signed. I think it was the portrait that Lamontagne did, Armand. And so I did, and he signed it, and as I was told when he signed it, he was having a problem, naturally. And so we put it up, and there was 1,000 people came that night, and it was amazing the people that read that, what he had put on the poster, And then we, I think appropriately, buried it with him. And so he took it with him wherever he is. So he's probably got up in his room wherever he is now.
There you go.
I'm plugged in again, so
All right. We're right back. So
wouldn't be a good podcast if we didn't have trouble.
That's right. Absolutely.
That's how we do things around here.
Yeah, it gives it character.
Yep. Thomas, you got the next question.
Sure. What was it like playing for Don Cherry?
Ooh.
Different. He was a focal point, I think. I think was his trade anyway. It was a lot of it. I like the guy. I've talked to him since, and he was a decent guy. I felt that sometimes it was more about him, and he put the show on, and he put the arms in the air and all the bullshit. But he was a tough guy, and he was. What was the guy who was just coaching Philadelphia? That guy.
Oh, Tortorella.
I mean, that guy. I mean, he's ridiculous. And he was like a clone of Cherry, I would think. But I'd never liked the way he went at things and the way he talked to people and his players. And there's no need for that. Even Belichick didn't do that. He'd get in your face, but that was he wasn't like carry on, and put a puss on and whatever.
Ed, question for Brooksy.
Well, I'd have to say, who was your favorite person to kind of go out on the road that was just like that comedian out on the road that just kind of broke the ice if you guys were having like a long trip and some long games and that type of thing?
Well, there was a few, and Bobby Schmitz was a character, and we had a lot of fun with him. Cash was, he could imitate John Wayne like you wouldn't believe. And a funny story, we were playing in Atlanta, and the bus in the morning leaves at 8:30 from the hotel, and we're all on the bus, and there's no cash, and it's like 25 after 8, and so somebody's saying, where the hell's Cash? So somebody got off the bus and went in and called the room and said, get your ass down here. It's, so after 8:30, and he comes, and he's walking, and he was a tall, skinny guy, but not real skinny, but he was tall. And, he gets on the bus, and he walks by. You got to walk by Harry. You got to walk by whoever else is there. You got to walk by Bep. You got to walk by, And so you don't look at them when you do that. If you're in the shit, you don't look at them. So he walks back, and you could hear him sit down. And he sit down, and then under his breath he says, we all heard it, he said, Jesus, these games are screwing up my social life. Well, the bus, we nobody, a couple of guys laughed, and then Harry, let's go, Bussy.
Cashman always.
There were some guys, there were funny guys. He had funny things that happened, during the thing. There was a good Terry O'Reilly story that he may not like, but we're in Buffalo, and the rule of thumb was we flew in on Friday for a Saturday game, and anybody who wanted to go to dinner, you met in the lobby at 6:30 and get cabs, and you go to a restaurant. So we go to this restaurant, and Vadnais and Esposito. Bobby never went too much like that. He didn't go out with us much for dinners, and that he's pretty stayed around. So, those guys, escargot, Caesar salad at the table, that kind of bullshit that, and they have. So anyway, we have dinner, and Chief's always the banker. And so the bill comes and figures out what the tip is, and he'd say, okay, it's $70 each or $60 each or whatever the hell it was, and that's what you did. So the chief says it's $60 each. And so Taz is sitting there, and he's looking, and he says, how much was that? And Chief says 60. I only had chicken. Well, the next day there was chicken on his seat in the dressing room, Colonel Saunders. It was a riot. I mean, that was funny. I mean, that's the stuff that was funny. But he never lived that down, saying that. Oh my God, the guys, because guys can be brutal. They get on you. And it's been good fun, but that was a funny thing.
I want to ask you about comparing the goalies now to when you played. What besides the obvious, what's the biggest difference?
Size and equipment. I mean, they're like, they wear armor. If you saw my stuff and you saw Popsy's stuff, you'd say, you guys, you gonna wear that? Because your arms would be black and blue, your legs would be black and blue. But today the equipment, and they need it because of the technology with the sticks and how they shoot today, and the size of the guys and the speed. I mean, they shoot the puck a lot harder now. There's no question. And you watch the games. I mean, you could watch the game tonight, and they don't hit the net a ton. It doesn't seem like they're always hitting the glass and the velocity of the thing. But the pads and everything was made now. They take it out of the box and put it on. If we got a pair of Kineski pads, which we at our time, that's what we wore, the brown pads, it'd take you 2 months to break them in. And then they would get wet on the bottom because they were leather, and they'd soak up the water, and they get heavy. And today it's the equipment is unreal. They take a glove out of a box and go and put the glove on and play. Yeah, I don't know, but it certainly changed a ton. But they're very athletic now. I think more so than we ever were. I think we played more angles and just did what we had to do. And I mean, they're more stand-up guys where you stand there and took shots. But today they're down. Even when they're down, their head's above the net. I mean, they're so big. I mean, the kid that plays for the Maple Leafs now, that he's 6'6". I mean, Jesus. He should have been playing for the Celtics, for Christ's sake, But they're very athletic. They're in. I would say they're in a lot better shape than we ever were. Today we were in good shape, but not like these guys. They work out sometimes too much, I think. But they're so their reflexes are just something else. The way that they handle themselves. And even this series coming up now, it's going to come down. I mean, both teams are very good teams, got great players on both sides. It's coming down to goaltending. If Skinner plays good for these or Borowski, I mean, that's who's going to win the series. It's the goaltenders.
Thomas, question for Brooksy.
Yeah. Is there any goalie out there today that reminds you of yourself back when you played?
They're all dead. Not really, because of the way that they go down on the ice all the time with their pads. They're down, and how they go across the net. They're pushing off all the time. It's a total different mindset of how they play. They still got to play. The goal is still 4x6. That hasn't changed. The crease is the same, pretty much. It was at one time it was square, now it's round. But the angles have not changed, and you have to play an angle all the time. And you got to be out. You can't be in the net, because the way they shoot today, you watch some of the games, they can put a puck in that was an inch showing up top, and they put it in. They seem to score a lot more goals up top now. They're all shooting high at the goalies, you know. But that's my feeling of it.
Ed, question for Brooksy.
Well, I'm going to ask you. This is so. When we spoke to Andre last week, he talked about going to camp to kind of get in shape.
Yep.
And you feel like that I would assume that you pretty much would do the same thing. What was your training regimen before you went into camp?
Stay out of the bars. Yeah, he was correct, because your training camp then was like maybe 2 weeks, if that, and then you played. Now they play within 3 or 4 days, but those guys are in unbelievable shape when they come in, and if you're not, you're going to lose your job. That's the way it is now. We went to training camp to get into shape, even though we worked out a little bit coming in, and you didn't want to keep, you kept yourself fairly good, but we went to get into shape. And you had 2 weeks and 2 practices a day, one in the morning, one in the afternoon, and then and that's how you did it. And then you got into, but you didn't get into game shape till the first month of the season, because by the time you get everything going, it takes you that long.
I want to ask
today
you. Oh, good.
Today they come in and they're ready to go. It's just like they're ready to go.
The question I had was, out of all the teams that you played on, what's your all-time favorite team that you played on?
It's a toss up between the Braves and the Bruins. The Braves was so much fun. Coming from a team that we didn't win diddly, and with the Reds, we had a record. I think it was 2 years we didn't win a game on the road.
Oh wow,
or something like that. And we won the game in Hershey. You might have thought we won the Stanley Cup. We won. Everybody went crazy, and that's my feeling on that. It's hard to pick what was the best. How can I not say the Bruins when you got the guys we played with? And how can you not say the Braves with a team that came out of nowhere with 20 guys who didn't know each other, and we end up playing unbelievable all year? So that was probably the most fun, was the Braves. We had a ball, but we were winning all the time. Bruins was more of a job, and you had to, but to play with the guys that were there, that's history in my book.
Yeah.
I mean, I was just so fortunate, and and how can you not say something about the best player in the world?
Right. Right.
I mean, how can you go against that? And
Thomas,
he revolutionized. Him and Channel 38 put the Bruins on the friggin' map.
without a doubt. Without a doubt. That song when I was a kid,
Yeah.
everybody related to that song with the Bruins. Still,
Yeah.
anything old school hockey for me, that song is. We still send little things around every now and then that has that song attached to it, and it's like a hockey in a time capsule for me.
Yeah. Well, if you play that, and you're so correct, because when you hear that song, you automatically just go back to think, well, in the 60s and 70s, wow, that you don't even have to think about it. That's when it was.
No, if there was anything that defined the old Bruins pre 1980, before the Nets and stuff, before cable, that was it in a nutshell right there. That song, without a doubt.
And then in 38 doing what they did, and doing the game, televising the games, people could watch them for nothing, as long as they had tinfoil on the rabbit ears to get the thing so you could see it. And I enjoyed that. I did 7 or 8 games with color on 38, and it was fun. I didn't know what I was doing. Turk was good at it. He was very good at it, but he had the gift of the bullshit, and
just read his book, right?
He was good. Yeah, he was a good guy. I give him credit. He does a lot of good. He talks to people, talks to schools, talks to different organizations. He's a good speaker.
Thomas, question for Brooksy.
Yeah, if you could go back and give your younger self advice, what would you say?
Work harder, for sure. I think you get lost sometimes. Especially with Providence, I wasn't playing, so I come to the point sometimes I didn't give a damn, because I wasn't going to play anyway. Funny story, you like this one. We're playing in Rochester, and I wasn't playing. Marcel was playing, and we're getting smoked. It was 7 or 8-1, whatever the hell it was. And Dave Creighton was the coach. And he points down the bench. He said, "It's your stuff. It's third period, and it's 8-1. I said, "Jesus." So I started arguing with him. And, he's fine. He's, let him finish the game. It's, I didn't want to go in. So anyway, he calls Marcel off the ice. So now I got to go in. So Bruce Hood's the referee. So I said, I go out in the ice. I said, "Can you give me a couple of shots?" And he said, "No, you don't get any shots." I said, "Come on, I don't even play. I need a couple of shots." And so I'm arguing with him now. And so he finally said, he puts the puck down. He said, okay. And the face-off was in our end of the rink. So I finished that, and he said, "Okay, let's go." So he goes to the face-off circle, and and in those days, the referee dropped the puck. So he's at the circle, and he's ready to drop it. And I start waving my arms, and I'm waving him over, and he comes over, and he's pissed at me. "What do you want now?" I said, "I just need a favor. Will you go ask Creighton if he wants me to win it or tie it?" Bruce starts to laugh, and he had to put his hand over his mouth and go back to the face-off circle. And then he looks at me, and I could tell he was one to laugh like hell. So he drops the puck, 9-1. So that was a pretty good time, but that was when you could have fun.
Yep. Ed, one last question for Brooksy before we wrap up stuff.
Is it an hour already?
Oh, well, we'll keep going. I mean, that's
fun. I enjoy it.
I would just say, you know what, I guess, you know, what would be your most favorite kind of road trip that you did, you know, that the last road trip that you did that you like, you knew, okay, it's the end, but and how did you take that in, you know, that knowing that it was the end, and okay, did you just take in all the experiences and that type of thing? Because you
Well,
played professionally for almost 20 years. That's a long time.
well, you never really thought it was the end, because when the last year I was with the Bruins, and then I went to Rochester, obviously, you know, I wasn't sure if I was going to be back with the Bruins, so I didn't think of my last time. I had a contract for the next year anyway, so going to Rochester was, you know, that was the end of it right there, because I was too old to go anywhere else after the fact, after my thing was over. And so playing in Rochester, the last game that I played in, I think we played the Voyagers, and I played real good. And I forget who it was. He had 4 breakaways on me, and he didn't score one. And I knew a couple of guys on the team, and they were busting his chops about, you can't score on him. What the hell's the matter with you? You know, he's an old guy, for God's sake. You know, but when that was over, it hit home, because, you know, that, like you say, 20 years is a long time.
Very much so.
And all the baloney you go through, people don't realize what you go through. I mean, it all looks fine on paper, and you see the town. You played there, oh, great. You played in Los Angeles, wow. You know, all that crap. But they don't see what you go through. And there's a lot to go through.
I gotta ask you, Brooksy. We asked Andre Lacroix this question, and I think it's going to be a regular question for us when we do these. Who was the toughest player, in your opinion, that you ever played against?
The guy who had the hardest shot that I played against was Dennis Hull. He had a harder shot than his brother. His shot, he was a defenseman. He played in the Junior A League. He played in St. Catharines T-Piece, and he was a bigger guy. His friggin' shot, when it hit you, it went through you. You know, you get hit with shots and you bounce them off, and his was like somebody hit you with a sledgehammer. I always felt that he had the hardest shot that I ever faced. The trickiest guy was Makita. He had a stick that looked like what's that game they play with the ball? They throw it against the wall.
Yeah.
Highlight. His friggin' stick like one of those things. And he could shoot from anywhere, and they did. In Chicago, the stadium ice surface was like an oval. The corners were oval, and they would shoot the puck in, it would come right out in front of the net. The Olympia was like that too. And Montreal had a board behind the net that they used to miss the net on purpose, and have the puck would hit that board and come out, and there'd be a guy standing there. You know, these other rinks had things like that, but there was so many guys. I'll tell you a funny story about Bobby. We were practicing one day, and he's practice is over, and so I'm in the net standing there, and guys are shooting, and he's at the blue line. He took a few pucks and he's shooting them, and I said to him, harder, and so he shot a couple more. And me being a smart ass, I took my gloves and put them on top of the net, and I said, okay, come on, harder. He shot at my head. And then he just looked at me. Oh, God.
Thomas, any more questions for Brooksy?
Yeah. What do you want your legacy as a hockey player to be known as?
I don't know, really. Just a guy who was a good team player, and a guy that got along with the guys and did the best he could. That's all. I mean, you can't. I mean, your records stand for, or your stats stand for themselves. You know, I had a pretty good stat with the Bruins for the amount of games I played, and that was, that was something that made me feel real good. I guess just making the Bruins after all those friggin' years beating the Bushes and getting a chance. I mean, it was thrilling. I mean, and like I say, I can't imagine what my mom and dad felt. And my dad wasn't allowed to play sports. He grew up with a bad father who, till he was 21, had to be home at 9 o'clock at night, no matter what, or he got a beating. So he said, my son will never be deprived of playing sports. And, so I guess that that part of it, just making the NHL was, for myself, that was a good feat. I was fortunate to get it, but you know what? Milt said it to me. You earned it. And I really appreciate that fact.
So speaking of appreciating, we appreciate you coming on. And before we, settle into closing out the podcast, I want to ask you if somebody wants to reach out to you to do an appearance or a signing, or how can they get a hold of you?
Well, they could email me, Donald. That's my first name, Donald Ross. I get kidded all the time playing golf. They say, "What the hell you got Donald Ross on your sleeve for?" I said, "What do you mean? It's my uncle." And so, and I go right on talking about something else, and they go away saying, "Do you think that's his uncle?" Anyway, it's Donald-215@hotmail.com.
And they can also find you on Facebook, where we ran into you.
Right,
and,
right. That, yeah. And the prison has my address too, so if you need
So, do you have any signings coming up, or any charity events that you're doing, or any golf tournaments that you're going to be at?
Well, I do. I played in a golf tournament on Monday for Anna Marie College outside of Worcester, I guess it is, and that was real fun. I'm playing in one next Monday, and I don't play like I'm a pro or something. I get asked to go. I'm playing for the Amos House in Providence. They're playing at Saconnet, which is down near Tiverton. Beautiful place. And then I get asked once a year to go to TPC Boston and play in the Huckama YMCA fundraising tournaments, where a lot of they have different athletes come, and it's really fun because they probably have 10 or 12 athletes come, and it's great to see guys that you just read about or you've seen on TV or something. Dante Scarvecchi was there the last time he plays. He was a coach for the Patriots for years and years.
Very much so.
And guys like that come, and Paul Stewart, who I'm a good friend with, he comes. I have to wear earplugs when he comes, though, because he never stops talking.
We had him on the show 2 weeks ago, and he's definitely a character.
He's a piece of work. He's a piece of work, and I would call him and tell him he was. I didn't know he was on. I would have watched, but he's a good guy. He's a really good guy. But I bust his chops all the time. But he's good people, and that's the kind. I mean, that's the difference playing sports, when you meet people like that, and you go to a fundraiser for the YMCA and you run into people, and people are so, a lot of those guys are so genuine. A lot of guys get a bad rap. Oh, he doesn't speak to people. He doesn't do this, or whatever. Just like Orr, look what he does, and he wants nothing in return. He doesn't want a thing. He doesn't like the pomp and ceremony baloney. He doesn't, like Gretzky's on friggin' commercials, TV. Give it a break after a while. You get it's just a lot. And people ask me about Bobby all the time, and I just said in my opinion, he's a better person than he was a player. That's how I feel about him. And there's a lot of guys like Paul Stewart and guys that you meet like that along the way that are just, you don't know them till you meet them, and they're just great people.
Well, I can say from firsthand, since we started doing this, and we always wanted to have, heroes of hockey on, and because we're such hockey fans, and Paul Stewart's been on, Andre Lacroix's been on, and it's exactly just what you said. The first time you get a chance to sit and just talk and ask questions as fans, you become, engulfed in the person that you're talking to and enamored by it. And I just want to tell you again, we started by saying it, and I'm just so appreciative that you came on and we talked and told stories and all things that I am just glued to when we have somebody on.
Well, I appreciate you asking me, and I do enjoy it. It's fun, and I forgot to mention Gilles Gilbert because I played in his golf tournament. We went up and played 3 years ago, I guess it was now, and I hadn't seen him in a long time, and we roomed together for 2 years, and he smoked all the time, and I used to load his cigarettes on him. And he'd be out smoking, and they'd blow up. And the guy say, "For Christ's sake, Gilly, when are you going to get used to him?" But we went to the tournament, and I hadn't seen him. And when I got there, I didn't see him in the parking lot or anything. So I asked somebody, "Where's Gilbert? Where is he?" He's in the shop. And I went in the shop, and we just stood and looked at each other. And after all those years, and it was like, what a warm feeling to see him, and we hugged each other, and and then he passes away. And I talked to him 2 weeks before he passed away. He said, "I'm going in. I'm going to get this thing done. I'm going to be all set when they're going to operate." And I guess when they went in, they opened him up and just closed it back up, and that was it. But he was a good roomie, and he was a nice guy to me. We got along great, and we were playing the same position. Wasn't any animosity. That's what I liked about it. He was cheering for me, and I'm cheering for him.
So we'll probably close down right here. And I just want to say thank you so much for your time from the boys. And Brooksy, it's been absolutely fantastic. Fantastic.
Not a problem. Anytime, if you want to do it again sometime, I'd be more than happy to do it. And
awesome.
I'll try and think of some more stories that I can tell.
Well, there is a statute of limitations, right, with these stories.
Yeah, well, that goes without saying.
Yeah.
Anyway, you guys have a great night, and
thank you very much.
Thank you, Brooks. You appreciate it, sir.
Yeah.
Stay healthy and be good. And
You as well.
Thank you
again
so much. Thank you. Appreciate it so much.
All right.